Hello, my name is Haley Pounds, and today I'm going to talk about some of the sources that I will be using for my project. I found this article from the International Journal of Computer Applications. The article covered the use of neural networks to determine a person's personality by examining their handwriting. There were 3 key features of a person's handwriting that were examined. They are the person's baseline, or the line along which the writing flows, the pen pressure, or the amount of pressure exerted on the paper while writing, and the way in which the letter T is written. There were 3 inputs to the neural network. Those inputs include the height of the T-bar, which could be a possible 5 different positions, the pen pressure, which could be 2 values representing a dark writer and a light writer, and the baseline, which should be a possible of 3 different values representing ascending, descending, and level writing. The outputs to this neural network included 30 different outputs corresponding to each of the different possible personality traits. I found this source which talks about the use of an artificial neural network to predict the tendency among Turkish army soldiers to commit suicide. It was noticed that suicide was a bad problem, especially for soldiers, so this study covered only enlisted soldiers. Data was collected using surveys and documentary screening. In the end, this was deemed a success because the neural network was able to correctly predict the tendency among soldiers to commit suicide. The researchers believe that this can help reduce the number of suicide attempts in the Army. In this article, it explains the use of artificial neural networks to make clinical decisions regarding psychological assessment. The article includes 2 examples where artificial neural networks were used to replicate a computer diagnostic program, and in which a neural network was used to predict a behavior outcome. I found this article to be very interesting in that it gave me some ideas as far as how I would use my data as inputs to my neural network. Since I would be using my neural network to predict the personality traits of others, I looked for similar problem examples just to see how others attack the issue. I came across this thesis done by a student from the University of Nebraska. In this thesis, the student discussed the use of neural networks to identify psychological patterns. The student took data from the Community Transition Program in Lincoln, Nebraska. This data included demographic information, clinical information, and problem assessments for 177 admissions. I noticed that the student also used the MATLAB Neural Network Toolbox to obtain the output values. In testing, the student got up to 96.5% test accuracy. In my research, I found a paper which proposes a new method for diagnosing motion disorders by the use of neural networks. Common motion disorders include hand flapping and hand hitting of the ears. The researchers proposed that data be acquired by attaching an accelerometer to the patient's wrist. The accelerometer would then be able to wirelessly transmit its data. This is another paper that explains how neural networks could be used in the diagnosis of depression. Data was collected from 302 different cases. Each of the patients had never taken any antidepressive medications and were reported to the hospital for the first time. More serious cases that require urgent treatment, such as patients that presented suicidal tendencies, were excluded from use. In the end, the results were not very good in terms of actually properly diagnosing the patients. The writers blamed this on many factors, such as the lack of experience of doctors in diagnosing depression. The remainder of the sources that I found I think should be beneficial in helping everyone learn about neural networks, and will also help with getting familiar with the MATLAB software. I figured that I could use some extra help in getting started with the Neural Networks Toolbox in MATLAB. So I found this part of the MathWorks website that gives information on how to use the Neural Networks Toolbox. This information includes tutorials that involve using the toolbox, and also gives some good information about neural networks in general. In my research, I found this great tutorial for beginners titled Artificial Neural Networks, a Tutorial. It's actually an article that describes the neural network learning processes, network architectures, and talks about the commonly used network models. It also concludes with an example of the application of an artificial neural network used for character recognition. I came across this website. It's titled Neural Networks in Plain English. This was a very good tutorial that gave very detailed information about neural networks and helped me to better understand more about them. It provides general information about neural networks as well as examples in the C++ coding language that can be used for practice, and you can also try it out for yourself. I also came across this great MATLAB PDF document that talks more in depth about the neural network toolbox. It talks about the various neuron models, network architectures, and just more information on using the software. This guide really gives a lot of good information that I think can be beneficial to all of us on using the toolbox and neural networks in general. If you have any questions or comments, just post them below this post and I'll answer them for you. Here are links to all of the sources that I talked about in this post. They are in order. Please take a look at them. They may just help you. And thank you for watching and have a nice day.